Blue laws once ruled the weekend, banning beer sales, baseball games, even Sunday movies. In some towns, breaking them meant fines, jail, or public shame. But why did counties enforce silence on the liveliest day of the week? Let's uncover the 20 shocking bans that shaped American Sundays. 20. The day you couldn't buy a single drop of alcohol, even after Prohibition was over. But there's a twist. When Prohibition ended in 1933, millions thought they'd finally raise a legal glass. Yet in dozens of states, Sunday stayed dry. Blue laws banned alcohol sales, even though repeal was national law. In Boston, taverns chained their doors. In rural Kansas, sheriffs patrolled speakeasy style. This wasn't morality fading slowly. It was counties clutching control. Families drove across county lines to smuggle beer home, turning Sunday into a border economy. Strangely, dry Sundays lasted into the 1970s in parts of the South. The bans spread wider than beer, pulling stores and shops into darkness overnight. 19. Why the corner grocery and every shop in town went dark the moment Saturday ended. Yet one type stayed open. By the 1930s, blue laws made Main Street look abandoned every Sunday. Butchers covered their counters, groceries locked up by law, and general stores nailed signs reading, "Closed by order." In Pennsylvania, inspectors fined owners $25, a week's wages, for selling bread on the wrong day. Yet one exception broke the silence: bakeries. Fresh bread was deemed essential, so ovens fired while all else went dark. Families often lined up at dawn to grab loaves while everything else around them stayed closed. And when shops shuttered, entertainment industries faced their own survival dilemma. 18. How Sunday movies were either banned outright or pushed to late evenings, leaving theaters scrambling for survival. Small-town theaters in the 1930s became battlegrounds for morality. Blue laws banned matinees outright, calling them Sabbath distractions. In Connecticut, police raided movie houses mid-reel, dragging projectors to a halt. But in cities like Chicago, theaters found loopholes. Screenings after 7 p.m. were sometimes allowed. This left theaters running Sunday midnight specials, where audiences packed in after dark. Studios tracked losses. Paramount estimated blue laws cost $2 million annually in missed Sunday profits nationwide. Communities rebelled, sneaking into private club screenings with whispered passwords. If film was targeted, so too were America's favorite sports. 17. The strange way baseball games and pro sports became illegal in some counties, and players paid fines anyway. America's pastime wasn't exempt from blue law zeal. In New York, before 1938, playing baseball on Sunday could land teams in court. Entire ball clubs, including minor leaguers, sometimes pooled cash to pay fines so games could go on. Fans secretly passed the hat to cover costs, treating it like underground resistance. Records show Pittsburgh's Allegheny County logged 45 arrests in a single summer for illegal Sunday baseball. Ironically, churches sometimes lobbied hardest against games, fearing empty pews. But crowds kept growing. And if athletes were punished, farmers selling food faced their own Sunday crackdown. 16. Why farmers' markets and street vendors were shut down on the busiest day of the week with no warning. For rural families, Sunday was the only day off to shop, but blue laws erased that chance. Street markets closed under threat of fines, leaving produce wilting in wagons. In New Jersey, inspectors seized fruit stands and auctioned the goods as contraband. Farmers complained they lost up to 20% of weekly sales. Yet in some towns, sheriffs looked away if a farmer sold only to neighbors. Markets became coded exchanges, with baskets passed from back doors instead of stalls. Yet, even in this desert of bans, pharmacies alone glowed with open signs. 15. The curious case of drugstores staying open when everything else closed and how they pulled it off. Drugstores became the loophole in the Sunday silence. While groceries shuttered, pharmacies argued they sold necessities, and courts often agreed. Soda fountains stayed busy serving malts alongside medicine, blurring the line between pharmacy and diner. In New York City, Rexall and other chains thrived by marketing Sunday as Family Health Day. Reports show drugstores doubled Sunday revenues compared to weekdays. Families bought aspirin, magazines, and discreet bottles of tonic that stretched blue law definitions. This carved out a strange Sunday culture. Health and sugar, all legal. But when medicine passed, fuel became the next sacred exception. 14. Why gasoline was considered holy enough to sell on Sundays. While most other products were outlawed by the 1930s, automobiles were lifelines, and lawmakers decided fuel was essential. Gas stations alone escaped bans, glowing like outposts on empty highways. Oil companies capitalized, branding Sunday fill-ups as patriotic. In Ohio, Sunday gas sales jumped 30% over weekdays. Travelers planning church trips or family drives relied on these rare open stations. But irony lingered. You could fuel the car, yet not legally buy bread, milk, or shoes for the ride. That contradiction turned filling stations into de facto convenience stores, often selling gum and sodas under the radar. The contradictions only deepened when department stores entered the fight. 13. The courtroom battles where Sears and big department stores fought to open their doors against blue laws. By 1935, Sears, Roebuck and Company led legal battles across multiple states, claiming Sunday closures crippled business. In Massachusetts, Sears lawyers argued that working families needed Sundays to shop, citing 40% of urban paychecks arriving Saturday night. Yet courts repeatedly upheld blue laws, fining Sears managers personally up to $50 per violation. Rival stores whispered complaints. Sears wanted a monopoly on Sunday trade. Public opinion split. Churchgoers saw Sabbath defense, but workers saw stolen freedom. These lawsuits filled headlines, turning shopping itself into a culture war. When corporations failed, the fight reached even higher: state Supreme Courts. 12. How state Supreme Courts got dragged into Sunday rules, and why judges couldn't agree on freedom versus faith. Between 1930 and 1939, more than 20 state Supreme Courts heard blue law challenges. Judges debated whether Sabbath laws violated the First Amendment or served community order. In Maryland, Chief Justice Carroll T. Bond ruled them constitutional, citing centuries of tradition. In contrast, New Jersey courts struck down bans on photography shops, calling them arbitrary. Families followed these rulings like sporting scores, since each verdict changed daily life. Legal historians note these conflicts paved the way for national debates on church-state separation decades later. But when courts stalled, entire towns took the decision into their own hands. 11. The moments when entire towns voted on what you could and couldn't do, every single Sunday town referenda turned Sundays into battlegrounds of democracy. In Ohio, ballots asked bluntly, "Shall baseball be played on Sunday?" In Vermont, citizens voted whether barbershops could trim hair after church. Results varied wildly. One county legal, the next still banned. Newspapers covered these votes like local theater, and turnout often surpassed presidential elections. Families watched neighbors at polling stations, knowing the outcome decided weekly routines. A single yes could reopen a movie house, while one no froze it another year. These local votes showed democracy shaping daily rhythm. Yet leisure itself, hunting and fishing, faced some of the strangest bans. 10. Why hunting and fishing trips were banned on the one day workers were actually free to enjoy them. Blue laws turned forests and rivers strangely quiet. States like Pennsylvania and Connecticut outlawed Sunday hunting, claiming it preserved peaceful rest. But workers protested. They labored 6 days and lost their only free time. Game wardens handed out $5 fines, equal to a day's wage. Fishing rods, too, were confiscated if lines touched water. Newspapers documented resentment. Men may toil, but not hunt. Ironically, poaching surged on Sundays, with wardens chasing farmers across cornfields. The rule backfired, criminalizing traditions passed down for generations. And from rifles and rods, the restrictions soon reached automobile lots. 9. The odd story of why car dealerships stayed locked tight on Sundays, and why that rule still lingers. Unlike grocery stores or movie houses, auto dealerships weren't temporary targets. Laws explicitly banned. Sunday car sales in over 20 states. The rationale mixed religion with consumer protection. Lawmakers feared impulsive weekend purchases after payday. Dealers faced stiff fines, yet some quietly showed models to window shoppers. By 1939, the ban hardened into culture, and remarkably, it still survives. Today, states like Texas, Colorado, and Illinois keep dealerships closed by law, a direct descendant of these 1930s restrictions. Few realize that buying a car on Sunday remains illegal in much of America. But even where cars sat idle, dancing feet faced bans. 8. How dancing itself became illegal on Sundays, and officers shut down music halls for breaking the Sabbath. Police raids on Sunday dances became a common spectacle. In Chicago, officers stormed ballrooms, dragging musicians off stage and citing owners for Sabbath breaking. Laws treated dancing as sinful amusement, no different from gambling. Hall owners lost revenue as Sundays once drew their biggest crowds. In Minneapolis, a single raid in 1934 halted a wedding party mid-dance, leaving guests humiliated. Musicians remembered losing nearly a quarter of their bookings to these bans. Strangely, the ban never applied to church socials, where dancing in parish halls thrived unpunished. From ballrooms to clothing shops, bans grew even more contradictory. 7. The law that let you buy bread, but not a new suit on Sunday, and how stores got around it. Sunday commerce often drew absurd lines. A bakery could sell loaves of rye, but a tailor couldn't sell a suit. Legislators called bread necessity, but branded clothing as luxury. Clever merchants found loopholes. Department stores bundled bread sales with other goods, hiding suits behind groceries. Police raids sometimes exposed racks of hidden clothes, sparking ridicule in the press. In Boston, inspectors confiscated shirts sold illegally on Sundays, parading them as evidence. These arbitrary rules revealed the contradictions of blue laws. Survival needs and personal pride were constantly split by lawmakers. And when shopping blurred, working Sundays became a crime itself. 6. Why working a Sunday shift could land your boss in court, and even earn jail time. Employers who defied blue laws risked more than fines. In New Jersey, a factory owner sentenced to 10 days in jail for Sunday work became a cautionary tale in 1932. Courts argued labor deserved its rest, but workers needing overtime begged for exceptions. In Ohio, inspectors patrolled mills and even arrested managers for keeping men on machines. Churches praised enforcement, but families saw lost wages in the middle of the Depression. Some companies created Saturday night shifts, ending at midnight to dodge penalties. From factories and mills, the laws turned it next to barbershops and beauty salons. 5. The strange bans that closed barbershops and salons on Sundays, and how people sneaked around them. Barbershops once served as neighborhood hubs, but Sunday bans shuttered chairs across cities. Men needing trims before Monday. Work often slipped barbers cash for house calls. In 1935, Detroit, police fined barbers $25, 2 weeks' wages, for Sunday cuts. Beauty parlors fared no better. Brides sometimes held illegal backroom appointments before weddings. Enforcement varied wildly. Chicago cracked down hard, while small-town sheriffs looked away. These rules blurred necessity and vanity, yet customers risked fines for looking sharp. From hair clippers to carnival rides, even leisure outdoors faced silence. 4. How amusement parks and fairgrounds turned silent on Sundays, even though families had nothing else to do. Roller coasters sat idle, Ferris wheels stopped midweek, and cotton candy stands went dark. Blue laws targeted amusement parks, declaring them worldly distractions. In Coney Island, Sunday closures cut attendance by nearly 40%, devastating owners during Depression summers. Families, desperate for escape, picnicked outside locked gates while guards turned them away. Even traveling fairs were forced to cancel Sunday stops, costing performers pay. Yet church picnics, with similar rides, were untouched, a contradiction everyone noticed. Newspapers called it the quietest noise ban in America. And where rides failed, one paper product slipped through. 3. The reason newsstands became the rare exception on Sundays, and why newspapers were treated as sacred. Unlike candy shops or clothing stores, newsstands stood open with legal blessing. Legislators argued newspapers upheld public knowledge, almost a civic duty. In 1932, New York sold over 2 million Sunday editions, triple the weekday average. Families treated them like ritual, comics, ads, and sermons bound in one thick paper. Vendors thrived while neighboring stores stayed locked, creating a strange marketplace where headlines sold, but sandwiches couldn't. Publishers lobbied fiercely to keep this privilege, branding papers as essential. The contrast highlighted how arbitrary the Sabbath line could be. Yet even voices of music weren't safe from these rules. 2. Why radios, jukeboxes, and even live bands were silenced by quiet Sunday laws that sounded absurd. Noise itself became suspect under Sunday bans. Cities like Minneapolis banned radios above a whisper, while jukeboxes sat unplugged in diners. Dance halls were raided if bands played lively tunes. Slow hymns were tolerated, jazz was not. In 1934, Pittsburgh fined a cafe owner $10 for playing Benny Goodman records too loud. Families privately listened at home, but public music meant risking arrest. Ironically, phonograph sales boomed as entertainment shifted indoors. Blue laws literally shaped America's soundtrack, muting joy in the name of rest. And when the noise died, culture itself bent around Sunday silence. 1. How decades of Sunday bans reshaped American culture and still leave behind invisible rules today. By the late 1930s, blue laws covered nearly 30 states, scripting what families ate, where they shopped, and how they relaxed. These rules lingered. Car dealerships remain closed in many states. Alcohol bans persist in dry counties, and Sunday hunting limits still divide lawmakers. Sociologists note that enforced rest shaped family culture, driving people toward church or home meals instead of public outings. What began as Sabbath control morphed into civic habit. Even now, echoes of those Sunday restrictions govern lives, proving old laws rarely vanish fully. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the forgotten rules that shaped daily life. If you enjoyed uncovering these lost Sunday bans, subscribe for more deep dives into hidden history, and keep exploring the stories most people never hear. Most people